Hey everybody, how are you? I hope your new year is off to a great start. I think it's going to be a really fun show today, just talking about all AI and what it means to the small business world. I think it's something that I've heard a lot recently is for the small business owner, it can feel a little bit heavy when we hear this word AI and seeing that so many people are out there implementing it into their business and you might feel a little bit behind. But there's always this constant noise. We're always going to hear it when it comes to AI. So I just wanted to kind of take time in this episode as we talk through what that looks like and just to know that you might feel some pressure with this AI and know that, you're not alone. It's kind of just what it is. But the one big thing I wanted to really talk about is that I think there's some pressure when it comes to AI, and I'm not going to dismiss that. I want to make sure that we all are trying to move towards this new technology. We have vendors that are pushing, we have colleagues that are, you might have people in your network group that are saying, all right, what AI are you using today? What does it look like? And so there's just a lot that's going on. So as you guys are moving into this next quarter, we're in a new year. What is that looking like for you specifically in your business? What are those things where you're constantly being pushed to the extreme to develop new technology in there or new ways that you can see that AI can add value to your business? And I think that's the part that gets to be really, really fun is, hey, how are we going to start implementing this? How is it going to help our customers? How is it going to help our team? Or is it, hey, I'm just starting to implement AI because I need to keep up with what everybody's doing? And so I invite you as we kind of spend some time, put your questions in here. What things do you have to ask around AI in the small business world? But I think as we start and jump into this, is saying, okay, we're going to start implementing maybe more AI into our business this year. And I always stress that, AI is great, but if the data that AI is using is not great, you're going to get garbage results. And so we need to make sure that we're always starting with the data that we're using is going to be clean and it's trustworthy, because from there, we can help make decisions on what we should be doing with our business. The next part of it is when we're looking at AI, how is it going to help us? Are we just implementing it just because everybody else is? Kind of get that peer pressure of, well, John over here at business XYZ has it, so I guess I have to because we're kind of competitors, but we're not. It's really thinking through those things of how is AI going to help you and not just keeping with those trends. So I always like to think of, let's start with the customer side of things, because we all know that customer experience is key. And I think what we're seeing these days is with AI, so many things are hands off. We've lost that touch. We've lost that part of building relationships with our customers, with our clients. And how can we continually utilize AI, but still make sure that our clients or customers haven't just become a number? And I think this is the part that people aren't talking about enough, is that hands-on. And I was actually on a call yesterday with some other entrepreneurs, and we were kind of talking through how that is a big thing of going into 2026. Yes, there's a huge place for AI, but also what are those little missing pieces that we can bring in that are going to make everybody have this better experience? And that really comes down to the relationship building and the networking component of it. And the guy that was speaking even said maybe AI is used more on an internal side, whether instead of using on an external side. And what does that look like? And it kind of made me think like, you know what? That is interesting. How can we start utilizing it more internally with our teams instead of maybe pushing it so much on our customers? Because I think we all get tired of those chat bots. I know when you have to make a phone call and you get stuck in the phone tree and you're pushing every number possible just to talk to a real person. So there's places for everything. And even a funny example of that was a couple months ago with software that I'm using, like my marketing team and I, we were trying to, get a real person to respond to us. And finally it was, typing in there, I need to speak to a human before we ever got a real person. And so, how is it that when we're going into this new year with AI, what are the places that we're not necessarily talking about? So, where are those that we can build the trust, we can build the relationships, and then utilize that AI internally to drive up data or bring about numbers to help us make better decisions. And so I think that is something where I'm going to start leaning towards is I want to start using a lot of the AI adoption, but then not trade out relationships for efficiency. And I think that's something as well as we've gotten to be in this culture where everything has to be done so quick. You snap at a finger and people are like, oh my gosh, that's taking so long. Why is that? We're used to this efficiency where I think we've forgotten some of those little things that are exciting about waiting. And I think a good example of that is going back to the bots that have replaced human conversation in the beginning until we can actually talk to somebody, or decisions are being made with no explanation because you're using an AI agent or whatever you've built and you're trusting it 100%. So there's nothing of, hey, wait a second, let's all come together, let's look through this. Do we believe that this is the best? And so I think people, they really need to take that pause and look over what they're doing with the AI to make sure that they do have an explanation of what's going on in the background. And I think I've talked about this before where, remember in school you would do math and the teacher's like, show your work, and you're like, I don't need to, I got it in my head, I don't need to tell you how I solve this problem. But when we look at AI from that respect, we do need to have it be able to show its work so then we can go back and check it and trust it and make sure that it's not hallucinating and lying to us and building something that's not even correct. And I think one thing with that is, AI is taught to speak so confidently that at times you can forget to double check it. It's like, well, yes, this is a phenomenal idea. I think you should do this. Yes, I think you should do this. And it doesn't have those gut checks in there like we do because we have a lot of experience with whatever line of work that we're in. And we can, know when to check things because it seems off. Hey, I can look at a number and say, hey, you know what? This seems a little bit off. And yes, AI can be taught to do that. But in the beginning, it's not. It might tell you, yeah, everything looks great. Keep chugging along. And then you get to a point where, oh, wait a second, this is leading me in the wrong direction. So I think something that I'm starting to see is people don't trust businesses sometimes because they're moving too quickly. And there's this, oh, wait a second, is this best? Are some fact checks in place? Are some inspections done along the way so then I can build trust with the service or software that I'm using? And there was another quote that I'd heard a while back, and it was something along the lines of, they trust you because you're consistent, you're clear, and you're human in a lot of ways. And how many businesses do we like to do business with because they show up that way? You can go in and you always know what you're going to get. It's clear. And they have that human touch to it that we're beginning to lose a little bit. But I have hopes for this year that it's going to slightly come back around and kind of change the way things are. And so the other thing I was kind of looking at too is, AI doesn't break trust overnight. It kind of erodes it quietly. So kind of think of the example of, I always say this with poison, sorry to take this like super dark, but if you were to drink poison, it wouldn't necessarily kill you like that. It would be a slow burn that it kills you. And like so many other things that are addictions or whatnot, it doesn't hurt you in that moment, but it's over time that it continually, breaks you. And I think the same can be said sometimes when AI we're starting to really lean on it, especially in the small business world. Our trust can fade in those small moments, and we want to be able to make sure that the tools that we're using with AI, that we are learning to trust them because we've done the work to understand how they're deriving their data points and how they're helping us make decisions, because we don't want that trust to kind of get to a point where it's taken us too long to find out that it's causing a real problem. So, you never want your customers to feel like a number. You don't want your team to not make any decisions anymore. You want them to know what's going on. And so I think there was something else that I'd heard the other day with a quote around it too. Somebody in passing as we were kind of talking about this, but it was along the lines of, the AI breaking your trust. Usually it's rarely with one big failure. It's because there's a thousand tiny disconnects along the way. So it makes you think, oh, wait a second. I maybe put financials in here and I thought I trusted it. And then I went and did the work and it didn't. Okay. I went and built a new process or put a report in here and it didn't give me the confident answers that I was looking for, that really nobody can explain to me. And so I think there's something in that where you really need to double check and start to build the trust in it so that you can utilize it more in your business. And so I think that's pretty important in there. The other thing that I think is really, really important is, like, if we look at it from a practical standpoint, where AI actually belongs. So if you're thinking, okay, I still want to use AI, which is good. You shouldn't discount it for what it is. But how would you be using it in the good places for your business? Like the behind the scene analysis. Maybe you're helping draft ideas. I mean, it's great for that when you don't have your team available and you can, kind of just type back and forth. Hey, I have this idea. Let's build and build. And then you take it to a team or you take it to, a friend or whatnot and continually working through it. I think it's really great for cleaning up some of those thinking ideas of, hey, I've gotten to a point, I need to like tighten it up a bit, or maybe go to a different area and add more to it. And the other part that I think that it shows up really well is when you're documenting your processes, because we all know that is a tedious way to do, and you can speak into it and it will help, drop those in. It can also help you draft up some best practices around there. But places where I'm seeing that you need to be a little bit more cautious is, one, the financial decisions, because that's always huge and it should be, especially as we're still learning AI, still learning how it's going to go. Don't rely 100% on the decisions that it tells you. Again, always check it. And I think the other part is the communication, is those chat bots sometimes. And as we're developing those and making them sound better, you never want the customer communication to not be in the correct tone or not being able to communicate properly back, because I think that's where a lot of frustrations go. And I know that's for me as well. As you get on the chat bots and you're like, it's like, oh, I'm sorry, I don't understand you. I'm like, oh my gosh, how do you not understand? I asked for this one thing, and if I could speak to a human, this would get taken care of right away. And so I think there's a lot that goes in there of just, where it actually belongs in your business. And I think there's so many exciting places for it, especially in the small business world, because it is growing. You're going to have lots of vendors come in where AI is built into the solution, and you'll be able to really sit back and look at it and get demos to see how incredible it could be in the solution that you have. Maybe it's something as easily as, hey, it goes in and it sends these notifications, it writes back to them, it checks them, all the stuff that it even does with social media for you. So I think there's a lot that goes into that I'm really, really excited about. And I think the other part where we kind of see where small businesses do really have an advantage when it comes to implementing the AI in here. And here's what I really want to, put emphasis on is you have an advantage right now because large companies are optimizing for scale because they need that automation just to function. But you as a small business, you can optimize this for trust. And that's what's pretty exciting because you know your customers, you know your nuances, you can explain decisions. And so all of that context becomes really, really powerful. And AI can support that advantage, but you do have to protect it. And that's meaning, it's not to remove humans from the equation. We want to be able to, keep the employees that you have, but it could be shifting things around a little bit and utilizing people in a different way because the overall goal is you want to remove the friction so that your employees can show up better. And that's putting them in the right seats, giving them the type of work that they thoroughly enjoy doing, and using AI to kind of do some of the data work, the monotonous type of keying in points. And I think that's something that we can really start seeing an advantage for the small business because you're a lot more nimble than the larger companies are. And the other thing, what I think about a lot in AI, kind of when you're thinking, oh, I'm a business owner, you're a business owner, is at least for me, and I know this has been for a lot of people that I've spoken to as well, is we're not always so interested in chasing the trends. We're more interested in how are these in alignment with where the vision of the company is going, because there has to be alignment between the numbers and our systems and our people and all of the decisions that we're going to make. And so my thing is I always want to know clarity first, because when I have clarity, I know where I can go. And once I have that, then I have some trust that I can build on, and then I can start implementing those automation pieces in there. But if I start automating from day one and I didn't have a clear picture of where I was going to go and using all of these AI tools, I may, one, waste a lot of time doing something I didn't need to do, or I'm building something in the wrong direction. And so I think always have clarity first, because then AI builds upon that clarity, which is awesome. And then the other part is that small businesses really have an advantage is speed is not always your goal. Where the larger companies are, they got to act quick. They got to adopt this. They got to get it going. They got to be heads down and make sure it works well. Small businesses can take the time to understand it and understand how the AI is going to be used in their business. They have the ability to spend maybe a little bit more time testing it, which is a pretty great advantage to have compared to the larger companies out there. And so I think it's, we don't necessarily need to win the AI race, in the small business world. We need to build business models that people trust. And I think the most successful businesses, they're not going to be the fastest adopters. They're not going to be, a lot of those types of things, but they're going to be more intentional with how they've built it from the start. And I think if AI ever pulls you away from your customers or your team or the understanding of the business, it's not a signal to, oh my gosh, I got to push harder. I got to get through this. I think it's more to signal to pause and sit in it and see, all right, did I lose some clarity along the way? Is it outperforming? Is there a lot of chaos going on in here? And I need to get back to this clear point, because then I can see where I'm going. And that's going to, trump the speed that you're on. Because like I said, once you have that clarity and trust, you can really implement these things and stand out. And so I think overall, that's the biggest thing is you can utilize AI, and it's going to kind of protect you because you can continue to stand out, but then you can also kind of use it at a slower pace and test it to see how things are going. So with that, that's kind of like my monologue about AI today, but there's a couple of great questions in here from people that I wanted to take a minute to answer. And like this one right here from Mick, do you think the pressure to use AI is justified? And I think to a point, yes, it is, because if you are not using any AI in your business, you will get passed by. It's kind of like, so many trends we've seen in the past with Redbox, and how they were mailing you DVDs to watch of your movies, and then they never got to the streaming side of things. NetSuite, or not NetSuite, sorry. um, they didn't get to that, and Netflix did, and so they took that market share. You think of Blockbuster, same thing. They had all these stores, you would go rent movies, but they never got to a place where they kept up with where new technology and where trends were leading, and so they get passed up. And I think that's something that's very important for small businesses, is you don't want to get passed by with your competition. You need to stay in the forefront of it. So you do need to feel that pressure to use it, but don't feel so pressured that you're making poor choices with it, is kind of how I would say that. We got another one here. Is Avery, how often are leaders being asked to do something with AI but haven't been given budget, time, or clear success metrics? I hear this a lot from a lot of my own clients of, hey, we don't know what we should measure. We don't really have anything we should go by. So if I throw these, financials in or whatnot into AI, I don't know what I should be measuring. And I think one great place for leaders to kind of get started with this is, hey, the vision for your company, where you want it to go, and to be able to clearly communicate that to your employees so that you can help them put together some clear success metrics that you can do together, or as a leader, you can, build them and then pass it down. Another great way is if you're newer in your organization and you may not know exactly what to use, is using ChatGPT and putting in there, hey, I have a business that does ABC. We sell about this. Here's some of the things that we do, and have it help you build out some metrics. And again, always test it, because you want to make sure those are measurable and they will lead to success in your organization. And then from there, with budgets and things like that, usually your CFO or a controller will have budgets that they can help you build. But again, AI is a great tool to help you build out a budget where you can drop, your financials in there. You say, hey, I expect to grow by this much. These are some of the areas I need to tighten in. What should I be using for a budget? And there's best practice metrics out there, which, make it really fun. And it's a great way to track your business and see how things are going. And then let's see. We have one more here. Why do you think the AI conversation has turned into an arms race instead of a strategy decision? I think personally, this is like a lot of things with newer technology. There's that race to the top because you're going to be the most successful, and then everybody else catches up. And we've seen this a lot with, Google and Amazon and all of these things where there's this race to the top, and people go and they make, a lot of money. They're very, very successful. And then the competition starts to come in. So I see a lot of AI tools being developed out there, and there's this race of, I have the best tool. No, you don't. I do. And something new coming out every Monday, it seems like, because they're looking to make their footprint and to help people. But I think also with that, how many times is our new solutions created and they may not be exactly ready for market yet? I think AI is one of those, as they're still being built out, we're still all learning it and all the new models that go with it. But I think overall just this race, because people want to be known, they want to make an impact when it comes to this. So you got another really good one here. How do you help leaders decide what's worth automating versus what still needs human judgment? So with these, I like to sit down with my clients and ask, what are the parts of your business that are unique? What are parts that are, your customer experience that you feel stands out from your competition, and that you want to be able to keep it that way, or, add things to it to make it better? Those are the parts where I see that you really need that human thought behind it so that you know, hey, I'm not going to just go automate this. I need a real person in here helping make that decision and giving the customer or the client the feedback that they need that no bot can do. Because I have seen, even with myself, sometimes, those chat bots, or even when you get stuck on the phone tree, if you're trying to, call somebody, it gets very, very frustrating. And then you just don't want to do business. I could figure out a better way to do this. I'll just go to somebody else. And I think that's something that's really important when leaders decide. The whole automation part of it is what's going to make it where you still provide a really great experience that you will have people coming back and people will be talking about it. And I think that that's a huge part of it. I did a couple years ago, I went down this path of studying tons of customer experience. How does Porsche do it, and Mercedes, whole bunch of people. And it was just really unique what they had built and why people wanted to shop with them, because of those unique things that no matter what type of technology they put in, it would sour that client experience and they wouldn't want to do that. And I think for small businesses, this is something that is key for you, is what your customers love about you. And if you don't, ask them and then see from there, hey, what can we start automating? And I think a lot of times automating internally makes a lot more sense of, I'm going to create a portal, or I'm going to have ways that my clients can access their invoices. So maybe they don't have to call me to get a copy. Those types of things that, they add to that experience versus making it more difficult. And then also look at, when you're automating things, what helps internally also, because a lot of times some automations will make it more difficult for your team as well. And what are those things that, are going to do that? So it's something you really is a good exercise to just sit back, maybe whiteboard it, put it on there, write down all of those things that, hey, we would like to automate this. And then have that gut check of, okay, if we did do this, would it change the experience that our customers or clients have with us? So I think that's something to do. Plus, whiteboarding is really fun. It's a great way to interact with your team and kind of get that good practice into place. So I think got one more here. And this is specifically around manufacturing, which is great because it's my wheelhouse. I love it. So what have you seen as far as best use case for AI in manufacturing operations? So AI, I think, has really helped on the manufacturing side when it comes to planning. You can do your demand planning a lot better. You're running MRP in the background. You can forecast at a level that you couldn't do with past ERP solutions and even with older software, or let alone an Excel spreadsheet. I had a client I worked with last year, and they were still doing this as a $30 million company by hand. And it was very difficult to keep up because they had thousands of SKUs and they could never get to a point where they knew what needed to be made at a real time. And so the AI component in this, the guy even laughed. He's like, oh my gosh, I can take a day off. I could go fishing if I wanted to. And I'm not stuck having to work in this Excel spreadsheet all the time. So I see that AI has really helped on that side. It's also helped when you're looking at some of the machine learning that's out there, looking at how many parts we can get off a machine. AI can help run algorithms so that you know what to look for. You can help your guys out on the floor come up with different strategies around it. So I think there's some great ways that AI is being used out on the floor, and I'm really excited to see what the software will add this year as it's getting more developed in that way. So yes, this is all AI for small business as we step into this new year, and I'm thankful for your time today. And as always, we go live every week. And so come with your questions. Again, if you have additional questions that you want to have answered, just put them in here and I will get to them afterwards. But thank you, everybody, for joining today.